Hello, and welcome back to my small part of the universe. My name is Hailstone. Today, we will be covering a rather odd and disturbing object. So please, if you will, sit back, relax, and let us begin. In the many generations of Jove that I have helped kill here on Europa, this is among the last things I believed I would see in a new cycle. This cycle seems to be plagued by a truly anomalous plant. One that could only be concocted by a madman, if one were to ask me. Though, of course, I speak of the Arty Dolittle tree. I have never spoken of the individual that this tree was bred from before, and honestly, there is not much to say about him himself, though often in many different cycles I have seen him arise to rather strange occasions, anything from a warlord to even a head clown, but that is only an aside in this instance. The prospect of this tree is even rather foreign to those who live in this cycle and this version of Europa, and they know very little of Arty and his tree shenanigans. Yet, here it exists, almost as if it has earned it or even needs to exist. The seed alone of this plant is rather strange, as it mimics the appearance of the poor man in question. Yet, how can this be the case? For it is something that has been hewed into this shape from nature itself. And almost stranger, it almost feels like a religious call to something greater, something echoing in the back of my mind, but I'm not sure to what. The care for this plant isn't all that different compared to the standard array of plants available to submarine crews on Europa, though it does seem to run out of water rather fast, leading to shriveling and the death of the specimen. A full-grown plant of this species comprises of rather standard green foliage and strange tube-like vines that make up the main structure of the plant. And its fruiting stage is just as horrifying as the seed is, as each fruit is a motionless human head, fleshy and all. Once the fruit of this plant has ripened, it will spontaneously turn into an inactive Arty, an object that is technically human to scale, but instead it is inanimate and almost wooden. And this seems to be what could only be described as the Arty's cocoon phase, and it lasts over an average about 5 minutes, or I have been told quicker if you throw them into a pot of water. Once this has occurred, they will change into an average Arty Dolittle, complete with a set of clothing, headset, and an ethanol bottle, all completely normal along with the Arty's lackluster skill set. Functionally, these Artys are no different than that of a typical crew member, aside from the habit of tripping over themselves, and honestly being rather decent shots when manning one of the turrets, though that could be due simply to the upgrades of the turret itself. Having a multitude of Artys doesn't seem to bother any of the individual instances, with one Arty regarding many of the others as completely different people, not paying any mind to the literal clone farm that results from planting an Arty tree. As well, the larger an Arty herd is, the more likely they are to start asinine conversations with other Artys, and it almost feels like the more Artys there are, the more intelligent the group mind is. Though it seems to do little for individual Artys, as when they're separated from the rest, they quickly revert. Though perhaps I'm thinking too much about this and giving too much credit to what should be nothing more than typical mundane conversations. But the further I study them, the stranger it seems to get. Any outpost we dock to seems to run out of any available stores of opium, and reserves on the ship are always at a low, and the number of Artys on the ship keeps fluxing outside of the normal ranges. And after a few weeks of close observation, I finally see why. The Artys on the ship have been smuggling fresh, inactive Artys away from the plant room when I am not looking. Then they take them to an out-of-sight area on the ship, and then proceed to pickle the inactive Artys in opium. This process seems to radically change the properties of the inactive Arty. The Arty becomes crystallized in the opium, gaining a thin, transparent orange shell. In this form, the Arty becomes remarkably durable and light, and can somehow even be used as a means of storage. Addendum. I have noticed the Artys using these crystal Artys as impromptu weapons to great effect, often using them to corral the wrong Artys. In addition to this, I have witnessed the Artys processing the crystallized ones through the ship's deconstructors, and what it produces makes no sense. Each Arty seems to turn into accommodation metal, one of those cheap coalition-made metals that are handed en masse to those who are just merely capable of breathing. Despite their cheap make and manufacture, these metals seem to have a profound effect on the Arties. These decorated Arties, if you will, seem to become smarter and somehow more experienced with each new metal they gain, able to corral and influence the other Arties as need be. Once they are past this point, they become something almost of a Hivemind level. The Arties begin making a perverse version of reality, constructing a vehicle that invokes levels of the Hawk Mother while bearing the visage of an Arty. Despite its looks, this bastardized exosuit runs on ethanol and protects one easily from the open oceans. We have been locked in place at an abandoned outpost for nearly a week now, and since salvaging parts and any distress signals have failed, the Arties have begun to act very strange. They've begun using the more anomalous properties to make more and more of these vehicles to leave the ship. Honestly, at first, I thought they were simply doing it for their own survival, but they keep returning and gathering more supplies, and nothing I can do seems to interrupt their goal or objective. They have ceased any form of communication and/or idle chit-chat, ignoring my presence completely. From what I can tell via sonar scans, they seem to be taking these supplies out to a nearby cave system about a mile or so out. What the hell are they doing? Log corrupted. Attempting file recovery due to eldritch interference. Playback beginning. I did it. I followed them. Nothing a cocktail of calyx eggs and ethanol can't fix. And now that little snot in my throat's burning away, I can actually breathe in here. The Arties don't seem to realize my presence, or mind it, even. It seems like there's some form of arcane machine in here, in a large cavity in this cave, and there's a massive Arty head floating inside of it. What is it doing? Oh my god! Thank you for watching another one of my videos. This was supposed to be out on April Fool's Day, but unfortunately I sat on the script a bit too long, so I apologize about that. And thank you for enjoying another one of my videos.